This is Under the Classic Rock. I'm Bill Hemberger. Today I'll explore the one-hit cloud hanging over Buffalo Springfield.
She's worth a whole lot more. Baby, don't scold me. You see, I'm not old enough to recognize all the signs you might find if you just told me.
Let's start off with a list, shall we? Poco, Loggins and Messina, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Crazy Horse. All bands with traction in the 60s and 70s, and all were in some way spin-offs of Buffalo Springfield. The band was only together for 2 years. Buffalo Springfield was a collection of mutually ambitious, very talented individuals who happened to form a group that heavily influenced the folk rock genre and showed the way for artists like Jackson Browne, Glen Fry, and Don Henley of the Eagles. The original band was Stephen Stills, guitar, Neil Young, lead guitar, Rickie Furay, guitar, Dewey Martin, drums, and Bruce Palmer on the bass. Stills, Young, Furay, and Palmer originally met playing gigs in Toronto and Ontario, Canada, with bands like the Myna and the Go-Go Singers. Drummer Dewey Martin came from the countryside of music, playing with artists like Patsy, Cline, and the Dillards.
Crazy.
The nucleus of the band came together because of a car named Mort. Well, actually it was Mort 2. Neil Young, who had been playing in rock bands since 1960 in his home country of Canada, used to buy used hearses to move the amps and drums from gig to gig, and he named these cars Mort. Wherever Neil went, Mort would go too, lugging all of Young's gear.
Man, that cat is deep.
In the spring of 1966, Young and bandmate Bruce Palmer, after making the trip from Canada because they were looking for Stills, because they heard he was based in L.A., got caught in a notorious Los Angeles traffic jam in Young's trademark hearse called the Mort 2. Also in that same traffic jam on Sunset Boulevard was Stephen Stills with his bandmate Rickie Furay. They were on their way to San Francisco just to check out the action. Young and Stills had met in Thunder Bay, Canada the year before and thought it would be cool to play together. Furay spotted the hearse out of the corner of his eye.
Hey man, let's start a band together, yeah.
They immediately got together and through Stills' contacts in LA, recruited drummer Dewey Martin and started rehearsing within a week. Soon after that, they were gigging under the name of The Herd. The name was more or less a place card until they came up with something better. The band lived and rehearsed in a house on Fountain Avenue, and one day the Los Angeles road crews were widening the street outside the house. The guys in the band looked out the window, saw all the paving equipment, and there staring them right in the face was a big green Buffalo Springfield steamroller, tamping down all the new tarmac. They changed the name immediately.
When the dream came, I held my breath with my eyes closed.
In 1966, the band, hooking up with management from Sonny and Cher, got their first record album recorded. They called it simply Buffalo Springfield, and a Neil Young tune was the first single. The single was a top 10 hit in Los Angeles. It did not chart nationally. Now, the first version of their debut album was released in December of 1966. The next song to be released was the Baby Don't Scold Me cut, but then the whole first Atco release was scrapped for a second version, being released in March of 1967 because of the Stephen Stills song For What It's Worth. It was making a lot of noise in LA because of the Sunset Strip riots of 1966. and Atco wanted to capitalize on the event, banking that For What It's Worth would be a national hit.
You and your friends keep on playing punk gangsters and we're going to land on you hard, you understand?
For What It's Worth was about the hippies' battle against the super society called mainstream America. It turned out that the Sunset Strip was ground zero for this movement.
Something happening here.
Sunset Strip shop owners were not happy with the hippies hanging out at the nightclubs around their shops, listening to all that rock and roll. So they wanted the clubs shut down. The kids started a protest.
Battle lines being drawn.
Cops started using force and started arresting the hippies with their love beads and loud music.
Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Atco's gamble of pulling back the first album paid off. Buffalo Springfield had their first national top 10 hit, playing on all the AM radios in the U.S. Then in 1967, the band started to rip apart by success, drugs, women, and Neil Young. Young was in and out of the band with whatever mood that struck him.
Flying on the ground is wrong.
The first Buffalo Springfield album took a week or so to record. The next album, Buffalo Springfield Again, took 9 months to record because of Neil Young's constant quitting and rejoining. Plus, Bruce Palmer had problems with drugs and deportation. Different bass players were used for the second album, and one of them being the original bass player for the yet-formed Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Jim Fielder, and also Jim Messina from Loggins and Messina. Soon after the second album, the band did appear at the Monterey Pop Festival, but without Neil Young. David Crosby took the stage instead, which could have been the spark that led to Crosby, Stills, and Nash. But we'll discuss that in another Under the Classic Rock episode.
Let's get a move on. We don't have time for worthless self-promotion.
Okay. The third BS album was completed for contractual reasons only. Nowhere on the album does the entire original band appear on any one track. Jim Messina again brought in to play bass, and even the album cover was a montage. It did not include the original bass player Bruce Palmer. Over the years, reunions were planned, and some shows did get played, but mostly not with the original band because Neil Young's continued absence. A reunion can't happen now because Bruce Palmer died in 2004 and Dewey Martin passed away in 2009. Now let's do some true and false before we put this buffalo back out the pasture. True, the band was the house band for the Whiskey, the Whiskey A Go-Go Club on Sunset Strip from May 2nd to June 18th, 1966. And Stephen Stills was not distraught about being turned down for the Monkees TV show. False. Word is he got very depressed. He felt they should have been looking for talent as opposed to just a good-looking face for TV.
This is Al from Pittsburgh, PA, and keep up the good work. Doing a great job. Thanks.
You can hear and download Under the Classic Rock on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Player FM, and on iHeartRadio. If you have any suggestions for upcoming shows, you can reach me at undercr@gmail.com or on the Under the Classic Rock Facebook page. I thank you for listening and downloading Under the Classic Rock. We'll talk to you soon.